uh, create impactful and sustainable improvement in the lives of Bengaloreans. NBF is working with Bengaloreans to protect and serve Nama Bengaluru, be it in the cause of saving lakes of Bengaluru or the eco-sensitive zone of Bannerghatta National Park, or in illegal commercialization happening in Bengaluru, or for that matter, the effective functioning of our local government, the BBMP. NBF has given its voice and a platform for citizens' voice. We have given all the might that is needed, and NBF has become the voice of Bengaloreans. So this is one of the video conferences and webinars that is in the series of that has been happening, where citizens come and constructively engage with the government to evolve solutions. So with that background, we welcome all of you for this webinar. And
we have Mr. Prakash Belwadi, who's the moderator for the today.
Yes.
Welcome, Prakash.
Welcome.
Hello. And that is Harish of Nama Bengaluru Foundation.
Hello, Prakash ji. Namaste.
Namaste. Actually, I've registered here on Maz Khan's computer.
I changed your name to Prakash Belwadi.
Okay. Okay. Sir, shall we wait for a couple of minutes for other guests to join in, so that then we can formally do the welcoming and then we can go ahead?
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Our Sir Dr. Mahadev, BDA Commissioner, is already here. Madam Manjula is here from DULTA, and Professor Muthukumar from Wood Institute is here, and we are expecting 3 more people. And as soon as they join in, probably I think we can start by 5, and probably as and when others join in, we can welcome them and go ahead. Will that be all right? Sir, can we start? In which case? Prakash ji, can we start?
Sure, we can start. Yeah, we can start.
Yeah? Okay. Let me take this opportunity to formally welcome our panelists. On behalf of Nama Bengaluru, Member of Parliament, Sri Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji will join in any moment. We welcome him in advance. Sri P.C. Mohan, Member of Parliament, is already with us here. Welcome to you, sir.
Namaste, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much for joining. Dr. H.R. Mahadev, Commissioner of Bengaluru Development Authority, he is with us. Welcome to you, sir. You have to unmute. Hello. Darshan, please unmute BDA Commissioner. And we have Madam V. Manjula, Commissioner, Directorate of Urban Land Transport, with us. Welcome to you, madam. And we have Dr. Ashish Verma, Associated Professor, Transport System in Indian Institute of Science. Welcome to you, sir. And we have Dr. Muthukumar from Institute of Wood Science and Technologies. Welcome to you, sir. Nice of coming to you. And we have Sri Mahesh Bhatt, one of the senior most photojournalists of the country and a well-known environmental activist. Welcome to you, sir. Can you hear me, sir? Okay. And for today's session, welcome to you, sir. I just welcomed you. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah, I can.
Yes. Welcome to the panel, sir.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear. Thank you. And we have Sri Prakash Belwadi, our moderator for this session. Sri Prakash Belwadi is an actor, journalist, and citizen activist. Everybody knows Mr. Prakash Belwadi. I don't have to give him an introduction. Thank you, sir. Welcome to the panel discussion webinar. And without much ado, I hand it over to Sri Belvadi. Sir, please carry on and conduct this session for us.
Thank you so much, Mr. Harish. Thank you, Nama Bengaluru Foundation, for organizing this important conversation. At the outset, let me talk about the elephant in the room. There are 6 panelists here. They are very
And
big.
one surprising addition, which is Mahesh Bhatt, our
That is how I said 6, actually.
Yeah.
So there are 6 panelists here, and 1 hour is never going to be enough, because for some strange reason, as I found out in the last 3 months, people tend to talk longer on the Zoom platform than they would do even on the stage. And you are saying everybody will speak for 3 minutes and then we'll go to questions. I don't think that is going to happen. So I think we will speak to some kind of discipline that everybody can speak for about 5 minutes. And then there are some 3 or 4 indicative questions that have been sent to me earlier, which seem useful. I'll just ask those questions. And then we will actually, if the BDA commissioner is agreeable and if the government is amenable to this idea, we should take all the questions that come along the chat with the participants who joined here and put them together as a draft FAQ ahead of the 18th EIA meeting that you're planning to have. That actually allows for a kind of transparency that we are all asking for. And that is another elephant in the room. I've been asked to speak only for 4 minutes in the beginning. I'll try to stick to that. See, there's a great trust deficit between green activists, many citizens, and the media aligned on one side, and another kind of people aligned with the state or with power or the bureaucracy. They seem to be on the other side now, and a great trust deficit has developed. I don't think we should use this precious 1 hour to actually go into any blame game. We'll see if there is some way we can actually arrive with some outcome so that we can take this conversation forward. Because I know that a lot of people are even surprised that, that I was included in this discussion as a moderator, because I don't know, it makes me feel nervous. I'm not some kind of a fighting activist or something. But anyway, so there is a problem here, and it comes between 2 imperatives. One is that climate change in the last 10 years, galloping over the last 2.5, 3 years, and the IPCC goals for limiting it to 1.5 degrees by the end of the century has already upon us. It's already 1.5% over everywhere. I'm talking about the temperature. And in many ways, the COVID pandemic is related to man's reckoning with how he deals with nature. And I think that's a very big problem. We need to deal with this question of, can we continue to live like this? At the end of Second World War, there were 2 billion people on Earth. Now we are 7.8 billion, and everybody's talking development and a better life and more consumption, and the Earth doesn't have, it seems, enough for all humans, for all life. And all life is a question. On the other side, we have the imperative of development. And I'm not saying these 2 sides are actually separated and polarized at all. It's a false imagination, because, for instance, cement concrete is a very big enemy of the environment. But all of us want to have our homes. We're not building our homes with the tiles and, everyone at least not doing it with tiles and mud packs. We all want to inhabit concrete homes. We all want wider roads. We want to buy cars, and we want to move with individual vehicles. I know there's a cry for mass transit, but even in mass transit, just yesterday, Environment Support Group organized it saying, why should we have these giant mass transit solutions like the metro? We should stick to bus transit, because that is doing 45% of all our transit needs, commuter transit needs per day. Now the thing is, this is fraught with so many views, and there is no way we can come together. And I think, I'll say it at the outset, the government seems to do a mistake by doing things without transparency. That is the biggest charge, that it's done in secrecy. And the trust deficit grows because of that. So I'm going to ask the panelists to focus with an opening statement on this question. How do we arrive at a compromise and begin to close this trust deficit? That's it, And I think I'm going to request, our MP, if he is there.
Yes, sir. He has just joined in. Let's welcome him to the webinar.
Yeah.
Welcome to Sri Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji, who has just joined in. Welcome to you, sir.
Thank you. Welcome, sir, Mr. Rajiv Chandrasekhar. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Prakash.
So, if you heard what I said, I just said there is a big trust deficit. And even if we want to find a compromise, which is true, we must find a compromise. I mean, a city happens because you displace what was there before, otherwise no city happens. But where do we draw the line? Because we have drawn the line and we have trespassed it so many times now. So there is a natural trust deficit. Now, how do we address this question of trust deficit so that together we can look at a solution?
PC, do you want to speak first?
Yeah,
No,
please.
you speak, Raju. I'll speak later.
Okay. So no, because PC Mohan was my senior colleague. He's the Lok Sabha MP from Bangalore Central. And
No, I just thought because it is
we have a good relationship, so there's no problem between the two of us. We think alike and we work alike. No, look, so Prakash, I think first of all, I think this is a good thing that you and Nama Bangalore Foundation and the RWA, the citizens, have done. I think this is the way to engage and hopefully change the way things are done. So let me start by saying I think there is no dispute or no disagreement amongst any one of us, whether we are on this side, that side, on the upside, downside, wherever the sides are, that imaginary or real, on the issue of Nama Bangalore, that citizens need to be more engaged with government and government needs to be more engaged with citizens. So let's start with that as a almost inviolable basic principle of governance. Number one. Number two, I accept the proposition that we are a growing city. Bengaluru is one of the biggest economic centers in the south of India, and growth, as much as most of us old Bangaloreans don't like it, growth is the fate that we are going to have to deal with. So we have to grow. We will grow. Population will increase, and all of the problems that are concomitant with growth will be problems that we will face. Third point is how do we handle this growth? And I think that is where the discourse and debate should narrow focus. I think we should move away from the nostalgia of the old Bengaluru and what if there was no traffic, what if there were no people, what if there were no migrants. All these are in my opinion a waste of energy and time, and we must come back and focus as stakeholders on the reality of today, which is that growth is inevitable, but how do we better plan for growth? And there, in my opinion, and I would, my views on this are very clear because I have fought the governments in the past, and I've been a prolific, me along with NBF and many of you have filed PILs and got the governments of the day to do the right thing. So I think the first step is for the government's planning process to be much more involved and inclusive. And for that, the Constitution under the 74th Amendment provides for an institution called the MPC. The way Bengaluru's future needs to be developed today and the future needs to be developed is by creating a plan that is built up of various parts that are assembled together. The mobility part, the habitation part, the livelihood part, the health part, the education part. There are multiple parts of creating a growing, thriving city and its 10 million, 12 million population. That will be all put together to create an integrated plan, because if you press something on one side of it, the other side of the plan is impacted. That is the nature of a city. So in my opinion, I would propose that the first thing that we should be all arguing, and I have proposed this to the Chief Minister. Unfortunately, as you know, this government, as soon as it took office, it was faced with floods and then it has been faced with this pandemic. And really, to be fair to the government and to the team in government, they have been fighting almost on a back foot a large number of issues, and really not been able to put their mind to what ought to be the development model for Bengaluru and indeed the state. So I will say three things. One is, progress is inevitable. We must plan for it. Second is, the planning should be citizen involved planning, transparent. It should involve extensive use of public consultation. And the third is, the planning ought to be not pieces, not these, peripheral road on one end, then we forget about the rest of Bangalore. It has to be environment, it has to be heritage, it has to be mobility, it has to be livelihood, it has to be habitation. So a comprehensive plan for which there is a provided institution in the constitution on the 74th Amendment, which is the MPC. So that is the way we should go about doing it. And I hope if there is, more and more consensus around this, then we can talk about not necessarily having to say, can we have peripheral road and no trees? We can say, can we have a peripheral road, improve mobility, public transportation, and trees, and environment, and heritage? So this is not a zero-sum binary game that we should be in. Development is not about making these choices. It should be about managing these so-called conflicting objectives and managing that and building a plan for it. I will leave it at that, and I will leave it to my colleague, Mr. Mohan, to speak a little bit more and then hear all of you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Sir, good evening. I thank Namma Bangalore Foundation and other to organizing for this good interaction program. So this is a very important subject what we are going to discuss today, and I'll not repeat what my colleague Rajiv Chandrasekhar has told. So as we all know that Bangalore is one of the fastest growing city in the whole Asia. So the Bangalore traffic is almost, Bangalore population is more than 1.3 crores, and the vehicle population itself is around 70 lakhs today. And still further, the traffic is growing because the whole, everybody wants to come and settle in Bangalore. And it is naturally because, Bangalore is one of the largest employment generator also in the whole state. And Bangalore is revenue, comparing to the whole state, Bangalore generates about 70% of the whole state's revenue. So the more population is there, people come here for more work and other opportunities. We need to improve on the mobility. That is, like now this government has taken keen interest on this present government has taken interest on bringing suburban system. That's a very good option because as per the RITES report also, around 16 lakh passengers per day it can cater. And the beauty of this suburban is that people around Bangalore who wants to come and work in Bangalore and go back, for them it is very convenient, like from Tumkur, Kolar and Chenpatna and all this surrounding Bangalore. This is one thing good. And BMTC also is doing well, and the BMRCL also with the new route from KR Puram to from Silk Boat to KR Puram, from there to airport also, it's a good connectivity, so that that road also, the traffic also can be curtailed. And now when Harish called me, he was telling about this PRR road. Sir, what I feel, Bangalore, sometime back we thought ring road is enough for Bangalore, will not grow beyond ring road. Today it has grown beyond ring road. So we need PRR road. But at the same time, we need to save the trees also, like my colleague Raju Chandrasekhar are telling. We need to save the environment also, and we need PRR also. Now citizens also should come out with a solution. And I suggest a BDA who's taking up this work, they should put the whole plan on public domain, where they should invite even the public opinion also, so that people can give suggestions. Then we can definitely, PR also can come, definitely we can save the trees. And the beauty of the PRR, what I was thinking, what I was going through, there is cycle lanes are there. definitely I'm seeing off late for the last 3 months after this coronavirus. Even I read in some papers also, lot of cycle shops which are there, their sales have gone up by 400%. That means a lot of people have gone health conscious and everything. In the new PRR, where it will have by-lanes as well as the cycle lanes and other thing. So definitely whatever projects which government is doing, they should come out, put it in a public domain. And my suggestion to BDA Commissioner and others also, and we are also part of it, BDA, BBMP and BWSSP, BESCOM should all come in under one umbrella, so that the city can be planned better. This is my suggestion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. The public representatives have spoken. I would like to turn to Dr. Mahadev. Sir, I would begin by asking you this. For the last 20 or 30 years, we've been grappling with what exactly the role of BDA is, because it is also a land acquisition body, it's also a planning body, and it's also into a developing thing, and many times it has been suggested that there's a clash of interest in that, which is why the 74th Amendment becomes an important question. How we can actually apportion roles, that is on one side. The second thing I want to say is that we know that even if you make law, for instance, environment impact assessment, it is not really served it. It can be manipulated. It cannot, sometimes it's not done efficiently. Sometimes it's quick and dirty. This rapid EIA may not work. Maybe everything is not taken into consideration. And because BDA comes into transferable control, governments change, and BDA's plans don't remain permanent, it seems sometimes, what its zonal planning changes. We are at this point, where nationally there is a debate on EIA. Here is an opportunity to do big change. We know that the land acquisition bill, which became an act in 2013, was not welcomed by even the parties that supported it, because it trammeled them from acquiring land easily. There are so many problems here. I mean, as an experienced bureaucrat who suddenly come into this problem, I mean, you were recently transferred into this job. What is your view, sir? I'll say, because we will look up to you first, because, how do you think, if you can actually just come before the public and tell what the problem is, I think you will have the greatest trust from the public, because you come without baggage. Many of us will be treated as being close to one party and not the other. We can say the Congress is not represented here, or the Janata Dal is not represented here. We can talk like this forever. But I'm saying we have to look at the BDA as a professional permanent body, and you're its representative. What do you think you will suggest to make this a truly transparent process? Because we know that the PRR had to be done 15 years ago. It would have solved so many problems. But suddenly we are popped with this question of, will you lose 33,000 trees for it? And it breaks our heart to see that. I know it seems simplistic, the trade-off, but I think if you delve deeper, it becomes even more complicated. So I give it to you, sir, to deal with this problem. What do you think we should do?
As you said, first of all, I say namaste to all the panelists, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to join the discussion on the development of Bangalore. As you said, I have come some 2 months back, and I have taken over, and I have seen what has been happening in Bangalore and in BDA as such. And there are concerns expressed by honorable members of parliament and others also. People are looking up to BDA for solutions, actually, for its development, and also for whatever ails the development of Bangalore at this point of time. We do realize that there is, as everybody is pointing out, there is a need for transparency and involvement of the people. The people's participation in the development of Bangalore is really the need of the hour, and we have to take them into confidence and plan for the city for the next 50 years or 100 years, whatever it is. In that line, as you said, there are concerns with regard to which has come up now, which has increased the focus EI on 18th, the public hearing on 18th of August. I do agree that there is a concern regarding using such a large chunk of trees which have grown up in that stretch of 55 kilometers. We have planned, I should say, we want to keep the whole plan in the public domain, and we want people to comment on that and give us suggestions and solutions if they find appropriate solutions for these things. And what we have planned, that 8 lane stretch of 65 kilometers, we have planned planting on a large scale, nearly 40,000 to 50,000 trees on both the sides of the PRR to the extent of 5 meters each side actually. And that would compensate, and we are trying to save as many trees as possible which are existing at this point of time, even building the road. That may take care of certain concerns expressed by the environmentalists, but I do know that it is not just enough. We want to do more actually, and that has to be suggested by people themselves. What can be done? If we have to go with this project, which would definitely cater to the needs of the people around, and it will connect 4 national highways as also the main city, and it connects a nice corridor, and it would ease the traffic and transit inside Bangalore, even reducing the environmental impact of the heavy traffic across. And for the development of Bangalore, I should say I am fortunate enough that I am here at the time where I am revising the CDP for 2031, where we want to involve more and more public into the process of developing the CDP itself. And we would like to see what kind of changes people would expect. Now the government has asked us to involve TOD based development for Bangalore, and it has sent us back the CDP sent some 5 years back. And definitely we would, I would assure as a head of BDA that I would definitely ensure a lot of transparency and involvement of public in the planning and execution of developmental projects of Bangalore.
Sir, I'm going to ask a supplementary question, and I'm going to request you to do this in 3 minutes.
Yeah.
The question is this, let us say we want to plant 1 million trees in Bangalore. If you take, maybe if you can grow 10,000 trees, taking the Lal Bagh example, in 250 acres. So 1 million trees is a lot of land. Is there even a plan of allocating land for trees? Because, previously when trees were going to be cut, the plan was there, they said they'll plant saplings along the road. That is not going to satisfy anybody. I mean, these are 100-year-old trees, 120-year-old trees, so it's a big question. It's not just an emotional response. It's a big question on how we live our lives now, around the world. It's a big question. So this consultation that you will do on the 18th, can it be opened wider? Can you take questions in earlier? Lots of questions are coming here on the chat. Can we take it earlier and you form a team? You can take outside help too, and maybe formulate a response to it as a draft FAQ. I think people can understand that they should come to a middle ground. If there's an honest middle ground, that's it. That's my question to you.
I really welcome and appreciate the suggestion you have made. And I definitely see that the agency which is involved in this whole process would take up this task of inviting questions, inviting even suggestions and advices from the people in advance, even before the 18th event happens, and also ready itself with whatever solutions it finds, or even BDA finds for them, and also the solutions which are given by the people, how we are going to implement it. Definitely, we would try to take the issue seriously and implement it practically on that particular day. Even before that you would definitely see. And this planting on a large scale, we are planning particularly right now in Nadaprabhu Kempegoda layout, which is coming up now. You might be knowing that, and we are taking up nearly some 1 lakh to 2 lakh plantation on that particular layout. And also, we want to take up large-scale planting in plantation in the Shivaram Karanta layout, which we are taking up now. And Honorable CM has already he ordered us to take up large scale. Like he wants some 4 sides of Bangalore to have a space like the Lalbagh and Kabul Park. And he wants to identify, he has instructed us to identify the place, even in our layouts, wherever it is possible to have large scale plantation, particularly things like Lalbagh and Kabul Park. That also we are planning, and we will let you know exactly where and what we will do.
Thank you so much, Dr. Mahadev. We've been hearing about this as rumors. It is so good to hear this officially from you. And I think the community that is very engaged in Bangalore will cooperate with you to the fullest extent. Before I turn to,
Prakash ji, one request. Our Raju sir has an engagement. He
No, that's
like
okay.
to
No, it's okay. I'm
yeah, thank you.
Yes. I just wanted to say this before I turn to, Professor Ashish Sharma and Ms. V. Manjula on the question of transit itself. I want to ask this question propose this question to, Dr. Arunachalam. The thing is, the scientific community itself seems to be divided sometimes when it comes to the big questions of the city. And, this works very well to manipulate them because, you can get approval from one section of the quarreling scientists, get an opinion, and then you invalidate the other opinion. Actually, this has become very harmful, I think. How do you think we can solve it? That's a question I want you to answer at the beginning or at the end of whatever you wanted to say. So,
good evening, sir. Good evening to everybody. In fact, with a small introduction of myself, I like to start. I'm basically a plant pathologist working as a scientist in the Institute of Wood Science and Technology. I've been working as an expert member, tree expert member for the government of Karnataka. Recently, we have come across some of the similar kind of projects which are being executed in Bangalore. In fact, I would like to tell the problems, the field level problems, what we are facing while executing the project. What's happening is the trees, when the project is planned as such, when the project is planned itself, there is a kind of the trees which are to be identified, some of the trees that can be saved by retention in the field itself. These are some of the works which has to be done in the project plan by the engineers itself. They can do it actually. In fact, they will have to have the thought process. Their thought process should be changed. Why? Because in one project, when we expert members went to the site, it was in the project plan, all the trees were marked for felling. But after kind of too much of delegations, interpretations, and everything in the field, what we have done is, instead of felling trees on both the sides of the roads, we thought of felling tree on one side and extending the road on the other sides. Fortunately, the project authorities also accepted it. There was a little realignment of the, the project alignment, and nearly 50% of the trees are saved. So this we are working at during the execution of the project. But what I feel is it should come in the project plan so that we can save the time. And in particular to this PRR, what I'm seeing is maybe similar kind of situation we may face. That's what I feel. And another major problem, sir, first is the retention of the trees by changing the alignment, adjusting the alignment. And in case, if it is not possible, there are some trees which have to be transplanted. So now with all these development projects in Bangalore city, what we are facing is finding a suitable land for transplanting the trees. The trees are identified, The trees are fit for transplantation. They will survive. Definitely, they will survive. Of course, we have not come out, or the planting agencies, those are all involved in transplanting the trees. There is no kind of standards they are following. We will have to work on that. Definitely, we'll have to work on that. But there are successive rates. Trees transplanted, in certain cases, they are successive. Survival is good. But finding a suitable land for planting the trees, it's really very tough, very tough. And another one major problem we are facing, sir. Once the tree is transplanted, management, it is becoming a task of like, who will take the responsibility to care of the trees? Like, either is it the contractor going to do that, or the project authorities is going to do that? We have seen some cases where the trees were transplanted and it was never taken care of. Like, I'm not blaming here. I'm sorry, because these are the practical problems we are facing currently in the city right now. And if we could address these problems while at the time of framing the project itself, the formulation time itself, definitely it will be a successive infrastructure project. Definitely it will be a successive.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, Ms. Manjula, I want to ask you, you've also been in government, and, because how we're going to address transport in the city has become somehow a core issue. And everything actually hinges on that question, on how we're going to get a holistic, comprehensive transit solution for Bangalore city. There is a multiplicity of agencies that deal with it. You know, the BBMPs can have a plan, KRDCL can have a plan. KRDCL is under Public Works, and, bridges will be done by somebody, something else will be done by somebody else. Then you have a metro planning authority. You've got one half of the planned peripheral road that is now already the nice road. That is with another authority that has actually got land for itself, and it is tied up in multiple court cases, and we never saw anything of the plan come other than the peripheral road that they've done. Now you're again back in this thing, DULT. Can we have a comprehensive mobility plan for this city that involves housing, zoning, where people will work, where people will play, where they will live? Can we get it all together again? We can't correct everything that has gone wrong, but at least what we can correct, we'll correct, and what we'll do next, we'll do well. What are your views on that?
See, so far as mobility is concerned, there is already a comprehensive mobility plan recently prepared. But the questions that you have raised is that it is not just about transit, it is about, where people are living, where they work, how do they go, affordable housing. There are various components, including environment, everything has to be taken into account. To my mind, the master plan is the best instrument, and Dr. Mahadev has also mentioned about it. The master plan is the best instrument to incorporate a vision for the city, to take the feedback of citizens and to see what is their vision for the city that they are living in, and plan all the aspects relating to how a city should thrive. There are city master plans where I have seen even the views of a city. There is, London's master plan has a chapter on London views, from where the London city can be viewed properly, and, how attractive places from where they can see. So the master plan, I think, in my opinion, is the best instrument available, which can be a comprehensive vision document for the city. And if it is prepared properly, and it can encompass various aspects that, make a city thrive, including, let us say, something like migrant housing. Now, when a lot of migrants come, and without migrants coming in, cities cannot develop. The contribution of migrants to economic growth and development of cities is also quite significant. But where do they live? In the COVID-19 scenario, we had seen many times we do not really take into consideration where the migrants are, where they are living, and what are their living conditions. So the master plan can drive this. And that is what Mahadev also mentioned, that they are redoing the master plan. I think when they are redoing the master plan, when BDA is redoing the master plan, it is important that it is actually thrown up to public to get more opinions on how things should be planned. So that is one thing that can be done. Secondly, because I've been following it very quickly, I want to say the second aspect. Cities are not just infrastructure, not roads or not bridges, they are people. And it's a good thing that people in Bangalore are engaging with many of the government authorities, though it may appear to be that that engagement is not sufficient. It could definitely improve, but there is an engagement. But sometimes when you take big projects, there is a challenge. There are many viewpoints, whether do you require the project or not, but we should not lose time only in debate and discussion. So sometimes there would be a necessity to go ahead with decision making. At the same time, when we do engage with public, a lot of opinions will come. So all may not be taken into consideration, but to the extent possible, things could be taken into consideration while planning. With reference to PRR itself, I want to say that this has been under the works for a very, very long time. So it is time when we take a decision and move ahead. Definitely there is a trade-off, and you mentioned a lot of trees will be cut, etc. But PRR also gives us an opportunity to plan for a guided development. See, Bangalore's problem is sprawl. No, we are not able to put a limit there and say this is where Bangalore would be and this will not grow beyond this particular line. So PRR gives us an opportunity to put a growth boundary and say beyond which we do not want Bangalore to grow. We want to cut short the urban sprawl. It also gives us an opportunity to do a targeted or a guided development. We can go up anyway, we consume less. The building footprint can be low, and there could be more greenery that is prescribed or mandated through standards. And in the PRR itself, it is only 75-meter road which is taken. 12 meters on either side is again available for us to plant more trees. So we could look at PRR as a green corridor and plan what are all the open spaces that can be planted with trees, what are all the development regulations that we must put in place so that even when private buildings come or whatever, their footprint is less, and they can grow up, if they have more space for plants, etc. How can we make these neighborhoods walkable, cyclable? These all could come into the plan for the PRR. I would really suggest that there should be a comprehensive plan for the land around the PRR, so that again it doesn't become unregulated. Because in Outer Ring Road, we have seen, we put a ring road and then developments come, and then suddenly we have people traveling from far off places to that place, and there is a traffic congestion. So PRR gives us an opportunity to do so. So I'm quite sure if we all put our thoughts and heads into it, we could have a proper plan in the making. I think I've just crossed my 3 minutes limit, so I will stop here and then come back later. Thank you.
No, thank you so much. We will return to the master plan question. I can see already Sandeep Aniruddhan saying that the master plan itself is illegal. So yeah, we need to come back to that question. We'll do that. But let me ask Professor Ashish Verma. He's been a colleague and a warrior, a co-warrior with us whenever we have fought or come to discussions on the questions of environment or transit. So from his experience, he's dealt with government now for many times. He represents the scientific community of the city also. So I'm asking Professor Ashish Verma, what do you think we should do, sir? Where do we stand now in all the discussions you've had?
Thanks. Hope I'm audible. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. So thanks to NBF for inviting me, and I'm honored to be part of this esteemed panel with so many experts and public representatives. Priyadarshini, you have my presentation. I have few slides that I'll use. So I hope Priyadarshini can put this on the screen. My inputs would be technical in nature, but I promise I'll not show any mathematical equations or models here. Yeah, so next slide, please. So if we just, take a recap of what, we have been seeing and experiencing in terms of mobility, I'm sure, all of us understand without, throwing statistics that we have consistently seen growth of traffic congestion. We have also seen increase in the number of accidents and the fatalities that are happening because of, traffic and transport. We have also seen growing environmental problems, whether it is air quality, growing noise due to engine and honking by vehicles, and climate change impact that Prakash, you also mentioned during your introduction. Press more. Of course, growing fuel consumption and negative health impacts, and all this has led to degrading livability of cities. So I think this has been the world that we were living in, and this is in spite of the fact that we have done for last couple of decades mostly the road infrastructure projects as a way of development without seeing any results, and rather seeing this kind of situation. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Priyadarshini. Hello. Yeah. So what we really need is, if we think about how to reverse or, not follow this situation, we need a more systems approach. And when I say systems approach, it's basically a top-down approach. Then this bottom-up, traditional engineering-based approach, where, transportation planning today is not just about focusing on this volume to capacity ratio, a more traditional way of looking at how many more vehicles will come on the road and how much more road capacity we need in the system. That's not the way today we look at transportation planning. Rather, it should be about reducing the total vehicle kilometers traveled by all motorized mode, and thereby dependence, reduce our dependence on fossil fuel. Can you press one more time? Can you press one more time? Yeah. So eventually it should lead to more livable Bangalore. I think, we have many of the panelists have talked about it. So I say that, the guiding aim of any development in Bangalore, any document that we produce in Bangalore for its development should have, improving livability and individual quality of life as its guiding aim. I think that's very important, to ensure that we follow systems approach. Next slide, please. So, essentially, we don't have to look at these corridors as road corridors. We should look them as mobility corridors. And when you say mobility corridors, based on the demand patterns, based on the directions of movements, and then decide which system or which kind of transport system you run on these mobility corridors, so that you not just solve the core problem of transportation system, whether it is traffic congestion and travel time, but also reduce the connected externalities to the largest extent. Okay, so when you look at a circular city like Bangalore, the ideal transport solution is a spider web like dense network of a mass rapid transit system, which could be a combination of several ring and radial lines of metro and suburban rail seamlessly connecting with each other, and which are mostly underground, so that you don't have the situation of impacting the ecology of cities and the aesthetics of the cities. Unfortunately, the whole country has followed this DMRC model of taking the median space and creating these contiguous concrete structures, totally destroying the aesthetics of the city, besides also having impact on the ecology of the cities. Next slide, please. Next slide. In fact, among the various ring corridors, we had also proposed a inner ring corridor, which we found as an important, missing corridor, mobility corridor in the whole network of the city. It was also included in the CMP that was recently prepared by BMRCL. Hopefully, government will take a decision on this as well, which of course we have proposed as a completely underground, line, so that it doesn't destroy or disturb the ecology of the city. Next slide, please. Essentially, there is no single bullet. There is no silver bullet, one measure that can solve everything. What we need is a bundle of measures. And over 4 years of a project called Climatrans, we have showcased how Bengaluru, even if it reaches the population levels of 3 crores or beyond, as projected for 2030 and 2050, 2040, we can still, through this, combination of good bundle of measures, which not just talks about, increasing the infrastructure of public transport, MRTS, bus lanes, bus priority, walking, cycling infrastructure, but also bring in the right kind of economic and regulatory measures together to have that right effect. And of course, can you press once? What we also need is to top up the policy lessons that we have learned from the pandemic that we are facing, where we have seen a sudden drop, a substantial drop in the traffic congestion during this pandemic time, mainly because of the reduced travel demand. Next slide, please. So just press a few times so that all the content comes on the page. So I'll just throw these core principles before going to some specific targets that I can think about for Bengaluru for 2030. If we follow these 9 core principles, I'm sure whatever we'll do will have a minimum impact on the ecology and the environment of the city, at the same time taking care of the mobility needs. First of all, reduce the need to travel. I think we have experienced enough ways of how we can reduce the need to travel during this pandemic, and we should make many of them as a permanent transportation planning interventions in future. Second is reduce the distance for travel, where people don't travel and, cross the length and breadth of the city for their daily, needs and, requirements, rather be more contained and self-contained within neighborhoods and localities. Ensure equal access to all, infuse more infrastructure for sustainable modes, assign correct priority of movement and right-of-way allocation, going from NMT to public transport, and then at the end, personal mobility. Ensure a seamless, contactless and safe travel experience with sustainable modes, and incentivize its higher usage, just like credit card points or, frequent flyer mileages. We should incentivize the use of sustainable modes, discourage all types of high polluting and high space occupying vehicles that consume more space, promote cleaner vehicle technology, and improve the disaster resiliency. I think we have enough of experience with the road infrastructure based projects, and we have seen that they are no more sustainable. But this cannot be achieved with the fragmented responsibilities that we presently have in Bengaluru. I think we have discussed enough how fragmented this whole, function of transport is being handled. Next slide, please. This is my last slide, I guess. Next slide. Yeah. So if we have to achieve a sustainable mobility scenario and targeting, say, 2030, I like to put some of these key points, for us to think about. First of all, achieve a trip mode share of 70 to 75% by public transport and 20 to 25% by walking and cycling. This is this will bring that right balance of a sustainable solution for the city. With each public transport mode being operated by a different corporation and different operator, we cannot achieve a seamless public transport. So what we need is a integrated single operator, say Bengaluru Public Transport Corporation, to run all public transport modes under one organization. Third, of course, a integrated body. We can name it anything, maybe Transport for Bengaluru, that integrates this function of transport across different agencies and departments. And fourth, we need a dedicated and integrated traffic management center, which is managed by people with right skills in traffic engineering, modeling and simulation, AI, etc. We have long dependent on traffic police to manage this complex technical function of traffic management, which is something that we have not been doing correctly. They are essentially a law enforcing agency, not an agency that has skill set to handle this technical function. So these are some of the things that I feel we should target for 2030 for Bengaluru. Hopefully we'll have more time to discuss on some of these points. Thank you, Prakash.
Okay, thank you, Ashish. We just have 8 minutes left, so I'll ask my friend Mahesh to talk. We both grew up in Bangalore. We are very nostalgic about Bangalore. As MP Rajiv Chandrasekhar said, we are very sentimental about the city, and sentiment is a very big idea. Great human ideas are about sentiment, language, culture. Nation itself is an idea of sentiment. and we must keep the city. And you know, I don't know how far the COVID pandemic will progress in India, but I don't think it will kill as many people as air pollution will kill at the end of the year. So it's okay to wake up to some problems and not at all wake up to others. But I think we should see this crisis, this year of reckoning, as a big idea, Mahesh. You know, we cannot, you know, you went away to Goa, for instance, but it's not a solution. You know, if anybody loves the city, they need to stay here and solve it somehow, you know. So what do you think we should do? You have 5 minutes. What do you think we should do?
Yeah, thanks, Prakash. It is lovely seeing you after such a long time here, and hello to all the other panelists, and thank you for having me. Yeah, one good thing is that, you know, I have been saying for the last few months in my blogs that, you know, there is more talent needed in the governance of a city or a state or a country or whatever. Let's talk about the city right now. And, you know, it's very important that the government should involve citizens, not just in giving suggestions, but actually in the planning process. You know, I know that having dealt on some issues with the government on a very long-term basis, it is very, very difficult to deal with the government. You know, they don't want us there. You know, and that's the problem. You know, we are not welcome. This becomes a very big problem. Even to save the land that belongs to all of us, you know, save government land that belongs to all of us, it becomes a challenge, as it has been for me. And even the elected, I have, you know, people snub you, elected representatives snub you. There are 2 of them here, so I'm asking them to change that if that is possible, you know, and involve us, and we are in this together. And especially in the current pandemic time, you know, what it has shown us is that we need to be in this together and not just giving suggestions and going. So, you know, therefore, in one way we are talking about the peripheral ring road, and you know, there's already a mayhem that is started in a road that is going from Nelamangala to KIAL. The humongous trees have already been cut, thousands of them, which I had photographed and put it out on social media recently. So it is really, really required need of the hour to involve citizens in planning the city. You know, that's definitely it. One. Secondly, cutting large trees, you know, these heritage trees, the trees that are hundreds of years old, the ficus trees, which are the keystone species, should be avoided, because whatever you do, the large scale plantation is not going to work. And I have seen BDA's own Namma Hasiru Male failed miserably 2 years ago. And I see that every day in front of me. So I think that the great need is to work together, you know, with the government. Whatever it is, we are not against the government. We are not against the elected representatives or the bureaucrats. We want to work with them together as citizens of this city to, you know, to really bring lots of different kinds of talent. I may have a certain kind of talent, somebody else, some other talent, to bring together and make it work. You know, make it really work. Otherwise, plans will remain as plans, and things will be circumvented and changed. So that is in a short while. That's what I would say. Secondly, which is again, you started with the elephant in the room, Prakash. You know, the biggest problem is corruption. You know, there is money in cutting trees. There's money in planting trees. There is money, of course, in making roads, and roads bring in real estate development, which again, you know, increases congestion. So it's a big, that elephant in the room, that big elephant must be addressed, you know. So A, involve us in the process of planning of the city. B is, you know, try to bring down corruption in these processes. These are 2 things, very broad in the short time that I have.
Thank you, Mahesh. You know, I'll beg the indulgence of everybody here. Before I hand this over to Harish to complete the formalities, I would like to ask, you know, Dr. Mahadev again. Sir, could you just tell us what we can do to prepare for a better, wider represented discussion whether you can open up that 18th meeting on Zoom or any other platform, whether we can actually summarize. So many questions and suggestions here have come, whether we can put it all together and we could have an opportunity for you to address everybody with a summary plan or draft or a decision on how we can move forward on this. I'm sorry I'm troubling you so many times, but we must look up to you and you must bear with us.
No, I really appreciate the opportunity given to me and my colleagues here. And actually, we were discussing in our in-house discussions when it came to preparation of CDP and how we should go about it. I was referring to this kind of a consultation with the civic society on wider level, wider basis, every day, and on each and every aspect of the development of CDP as such. I think it would be better if it comes from your side, how we can go about it. Because as you said, there is a trust deficit between various organizations, various civic societies, and there is a question of corruption, there is a question of inaction, there is a question of snubbing. I think we should go beyond all these things and sit together and plan. And by planning, I think it is citizens' right to say what they want to say and what they want actually to live in the city, to make their living in the city, how they go about it. And we would love, particularly at this point of time in BDA, we would love to hear a lot of people, all sections of people, not just the elites of the Bangalore city or from the any other particular section. It is cutting across the classes. We want to hear from everybody, from slums to the high-rise buildings, from the builders, big builders to small-scale contractor, who wants to see what exactly wants from PDA or from the government in the development of Bangalore and making Bangalore a city to live in and love. That I think we are welcome from your side. How I can go about it, I would like to learn from you and practically implement it in seeing the development of my CDP as to the liking of the citizens of Bangalore.
Dr. Mahadev, I'll finish with the last line from me, suggestion that beyond this 18th consultation, I think in your term, you should institutionalize an annual 3-day or 2-day discussion on the state of the city, every year on a fixed day. You institutionalize this process and you call all these groups, all economic and social classes to come there and participate. Ventilation itself, if you put it out in the sunlight, corruption will decrease, So I'm saying if you can just even do that and start this year after the 18th thing, you make a plan, you involve as many groups of people and government organizations that need to come into the story, put them together and do this model 2-day or 3-day consultation process. I think it's very useful and it will set up a great model for the rest of the country as well. What do you think, sir?
And we will definitely implement it.
Prakashji, a closing remarks by Raju sir, if that is possible.
Okay, over to you, sir. Actually, thank you everybody for indulging me and having me here, and thank you very much, and over to you.
So there are no questions and answers, Prakash?
No, there is no time. At 5 to 6, we are past 6. What we'll do is we should get all these questions answered, before the 18th. If you can get your organizations to collate all these questions, put them together somewhere, and we can send this to BDA and our concerned government departments and get the answers, and maybe other panelists too, and get answers and put them together on one site somewhere. I think that's a good beginning.
So let me quickly give you my views. And I think I'm speaking for both me and PC Mohan, and if PC wants to add something, he'll add something at the end of this. Look, I have dealt with many Bengaluru administrations over the last 20 years. And my response has always been either deeply disappointed or disgusted or wanting to shoot myself in the head. It is now for the first time that when I hear Dr. Mahadev and I hear Madam Manjula, that I believe that we are at the cusp of a new approach to planning. If we have, and this is, I will just leave you with a few points for all of you to consider, and hopefully Commissioner BDA, and Commissioner BDA and Commissioner Doherty to consider. We must embark on an almost new way of engaging with citizens and investing public money in public infrastructure. The basic principle that all of us in public life, we know, and I think more and more of us should realize, is that these projects are public money funded and they are for the benefit of the public. And unless they pass the test of benefiting the public, we have no business playing around with public money. So point number one, I will lay out 3 broad principles: planning, consultation, transparency. If BDA in this project, DULT in this project, in the CDP, we embrace these 3 principles, which is that it will be comprehensively planned, the plans will be consulted, and there will be transparency about not just the planning, but also the contracting and execution process. 85% of all the distrust, opposition, skepticism about public contracts, public works, and generally development as a word will go away. And so I will say this as an MP, as me and Mohan, we are not part of the government, but we are in a sense conscience keepers of the government. It will be my strong endeavor, and I will put all of my personal credibility, Mohan will put all of his effort out there to ensure that the process of planning, whether it is for CDP, whether it's for PRR, the consultations will be done in right earnest, will be done transparently. And if you have suggestions that you are sending to the Commissioner BDA and if you can copy us, we will work with the government to ensure that we are almost embarking on a new era of, and I'm sorry to use metaphors and allegories like this, but in a sense, we should move away from this doomsday skepticism, mistrust of everything the government does into hopefully something that is slightly in between. I mean, I'm not saying overnight we will start embracing each other and saying the government is great and the people are great and all that. But I think we have a great opportunity to move away from the past into something that is much more consultative, much more public focused. And there is a sense that these projects have to be for the benefit of the city and not for the benefit of contractors. And I'm saying it out there. I've said it in the past. I have been a vehement critic of the BDA. Commissioner knows it, hopefully. I have been a vehement critic of the BDA and how way opaque it has been and how it has dealt with things. And I am fairly confident that even though me and Mohan are MPs and we are sitting outside the government, we have enough ability, or the power of our conscience is enough to make sure that we embark on a new path. So I would urge that all of you remain engaged intelligently, keep the skepticism healthy, but don't let the skepticism blind you to the fact that we have to make progress. And we hopefully move forward in a slightly more engaged, open, consultative, transparent manner. I will leave one other thought just for both Madam Manjula and Commissioner Mahadev. Public consultation in the past was seen as an academic exercise where people's views were taken on board and there was no obligation on the government to respond fully or partially. The Supreme Court has laid down and defined what a public consultation must mean. It casts an obligation on the government to respond to every point made received during the public consultation. So public consultation is no longer about just pretending that you are taking inputs and ignoring what you don't like and responding to what you like. There is a legal obligation cast on governments and government entities. And this is through these kind of engagements, Prakash, you and NBF and other organizations can also start making citizens and RWs more aware of what legal rights they have and what legal obligations the government has. so that this is not always about begging the government to do the right thing or begging the BDA to do the right thing. There is almost a legal obligation cast on the governments of the day today to do the right thing. Apart from, of course, the moral obligations and the pressure from me and other MPs and public servants and the intention of this government to do things differently. So I will leave it at that.
Sir, thank you. But sir, actually, I am sitting in my makeup van, in my vanity van, in the middle of a shooting. I just removed my makeup and came and sat here because we're all really interested in doing something. It's just that there is so much distrust even between civic groups, between each other too. It's not easy.
No, I didn't see, Prakash, none of this is easy. I can assure you that even when the commissioner tries to do this, he is also battling years of vested interests and agendas and so on and so on. Nothing is easy. Nobody should pretend and imagine any of these things are easy. But if there is something called a collective will of all of us that matters for something, let us make it matter for something. And that is why let us be smart, let us be intelligent. If the commissioner now today says openly to all of you, give me suggestions on how you want the public consultation run. When Madam Manjula says that I am willing to do a public consultation, but don't do it in a time-bound manner, let us not drift and make the project go into overruns and make it more expensive. I think that casts an obligation on all of us to be prepared, to be precise, to be concise, and to be ready with solutions and answers. Like, for example, Professor Arunachalam said, I think the planning process of these road projects must be factoring in transplantation, must be factoring in incremental realignment to save some trees. Those are all inputs we should give to the BDA and to any other agency executing these projects. And those are legitimate inputs that we should give.
I think Dr. Mahadev wanted to say something.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to share my one of my experience in BDA for just a second or two. That for the last 2 months, this is exactly when I took a charge of BDA commissioner, and I have met nearly 2,000 people so far. Every day I am meeting people, but I haven't met anybody who has come to discuss the problems of Bangalore. I was really surprised. Nobody, not even a single person, who had come and met me and tell me what exactly BDA should do, what it is doing, what ails BDA, what are the expectations of the people of Bangalore. Nothing like that. Only sites, nothing else. I am really surprised. I was really disappointed also. I don't know whether I should make a point here in this forum, but I was really surprised. Somebody could have come and criticized us. Hey, what nonsense you people are doing? Why you don't do this thing like this? No, nothing of that sort. Not even a request to discuss about the development of Bangalore, the problems of Bangalore, the problems of Bangaloreans. I was really surprised, and I think that should change.
Sure, sir. Sure.
Prakash, I just want to add one thing last bit. I would urge, let's take politics out of this. There is no Congress tree, there is no BJP tree, there is no JDS tree, there is no Congress road, there is no Bangalore city that is belonging to. This is look, I'm in this forum today, in this meeting, not as an MP, as much as I'm a Bangalorean. PC and I have worked so much for the city, not because this is a BJP thing or a Congress thing or a JDS thing or some other thing. So I think this issue of development, this issue of citizen engagement with the government should be devoid of politics. It is for our city. And like the commissioner says, let us engage with the agencies who have now signaled that they want to do things in a different manner. They want to do things in a transparent manner. They want to do things in a consultative manner. So now it's up to us to step up to the plate, us as in you all, with our support. And me and Mohan are available 24/7 for anything that even looks like it is going to be an incremental improvement on what we can do to our city and how we can develop our city. We are available. I assure you, I'm speaking, I have a power of attorney from PC Mohan to say this.
Yes.
Me and him will go the extra mile to walk the extra mile with you. We will engage with the commissioner, we'll engage with the commissioner of DULT, we'll engage with the chief minister, whatever. But you have to walk the path of engaging with the government.
Sure. I think we can close on that note. Does Harish have anything to say?
Sir, I think we have prepared a very nice ground for a constructive engage with the government agencies now. I think we need to take this forward in the same manner. We will plan it out with the agencies for a series of these kind of public consultations, sir. I think.
And every question here must be respected, looked into and answered, I think.
Yes, absolutely, sir. Yes.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Thank you, everybody, all the participant panelists and everybody. Thank you so much, madam. Thank you.
Thank you.